All right, boys and girls. Welcome to really what is our first APUSH online study session or live streaming now, coming from my kitchen and making sure that we get some studying in. Um, so what I said was let's see. What I said was that we have some rules when we play this game, boys and girls. And one of those rules is that we make sure that uh, we keep our chat and the live chat on topic. Once we get going, you don't want to keep commenting on each other's little posts or anything like that. Sometimes I'll ask questions. I'll ask you to respond, and we'll take a look at the responses. I tend to read them out loud for the people who aren't participating in live chat or who will watch this later. And then make sure that I know who you are if you are in the live chat, because this is essentially considered a extension of what we do in class. So you need to be on your best behavior while you're there. So everything needs to be school appropriate, and we need to represent our school and my class and yourself well to the greater public who could come in and see us. So we want to make sure that we do that all just so wonderful, because that's what you are. You're wonderful APUSH kids that are studying for their test tonight. So that being said, hi. Hope you're all having a good evening. And the is going to be just stimulus tomorrow at least, and 55 questions, 55 minutes, just like normal. What we will make sure we do is that after the test is over, we will look at some writing instruction, and then on Wednesday, which is a late start day, we'll have 13 minutes to do a SAQ, and you'll have your SAQs back tomorrow so that you can take a look at some comments and we can go over some common things and get a good idea of what's going on. So I see that we've got lots of people in the room. And I noticed that one of my former students has joined. So, hey, always love it when people do that. So that being said, which I say way too much, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start off with a content review. We're going to play a Kahoot, and the Kahoot will be over period 3. And so the questions that you see on Kahoot aren't going to look like exactly like test questions. They won't be stimulus and that sort of thing. But it allows you to make sure that you have a good content grasp and a firm understanding of the types of stuff that will show up. That's what's important about that. And then we'll go into some of the Albert sample questions that I can show you, and we'll play a little bit with stimulus based, just to make sure that you get some exposure to that before tomorrow. If you have purchased any of the test prep books, you want to make sure you're looking at APUSH period 3. You can go into sample tests and find the questions that relate to APUSH period 3, and you can use that to quiz yourself as well. And don't forget that on my webpage, there is also, under the study links, if you hover your over the study links page, you're going to notice that there is a period APUSH period 3 specific review linked to all kinds of videos and a suggested method that you use. So I hope you've checked that out in your exploration, because I spent lots of time on that for you guys. So let's kick this off. And while you all look at me looking like a big dork, I will get ready and pull up our Kahoot. What you want to do is essentially you want to make sure that you get your devices ready because you can participate. Now, the one thing about participating on the Kahoot together is that when you do the Kahoot, it can lag. So I try to have it set up where it will take a little time before it goes on the totally goes off, so that you have some time to do some participation with that and have some fun with it. Same rules apply as far as Kahoot. To the name that you put in as your username, just make sure you keep it school appropriate. It should not be anything that is a double entendre. And we want to make sure that we keep it clean. Nothing you wouldn't want your grandma to see, because that would just be not really happy. So I'm just taking a quick look here at what you guys are writing. APUSH period 3. Now I'm going to totally 100% admit that I do not use my own questions. I just go off of what teachers out there have already made. So there could be some things that we see that are probably more geared toward the that could be geared to what that teacher taught their class. It could be one of those things where you have be unfamiliar because it might be toward that book, that sort of thing. And so just make sure that you bear with that so that we can use it, because I don't want to waste any time remaking what's been made 700 million times by 700 million teachers. So that is. So I'm seeing that Matt Levy, you have asked, what topics should we study? So you have a unit guide. The unit guide has all the questions and the various terms and those sorts of things that we've been studying from chapters 6 through 10 in our book. Those are the ones you want to pay attention to and make sure that you have familiarized yourself with. And of course, again, there is a suggested way of going about this on the page. So Paymon has asked, is the unit guide like actually helpful or nah? So I'm going to say feels bad, first of all, because the unit guide should have been looked at sometime before now. And so I'm hearing some people say it's sort of helpful, I guess, good, but time consuming. Some stuff is kind of not needed, that sort of thing. What the unit guide has on it is not just everything that we may do in class, but it also anticipates some of the things that could be on your APUSH exam. And that's a real important thing to make sure that you keep in mind, is that we're also looking forward to May. So that unit guide is supposed to kind of keep you on track for that as well. Let's take a look at how we can make sure we get this all taken care of, and how we can do this as fast as possible. So any other questions before we move into the realm of Kahoot It? Kahoot It No, I'm not seeing questions. Okay. Those of you who are watching on delay, please bear in mind that we're also doing this live. Do we have to use our names on the Kahoot? I don't care if you use your names on the Kahoot, but I don't want you to use nicknames that are sexually suggestive or anything that would be inappropriate. Like I said, if you wouldn't do it at school and if you wouldn't want your grandma to see it, then you don't want to do it on the Kahoot. That would be very important to make sure that you keep in mind. So you don't have to give me your full name on the Kahoot. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just making sure that the questions that we use are going to have a little bit longer of a time limit to try to make sure that we account for the lag that comes about with regard to the live streaming, because can't get away from the lag, unfortunately. And some of you may want to have notebooks available because I may ask extra questions as we go around and do the Kahoot. It's a comprehensive review to make sure that the children are all very, very educated on everything APUSH period 3. And so, Vanny, please curve the quiz for us. What's the average quiz score? I'm not talking about the quiz score. And I told you I haven't even been able to do any analysis on it yet. So you just calm yourselves down and quit worrying about your grade on the quiz and worry about doing well on the test. So I'm glad that you guys are begging me online. That is so encouraging. I love the come on, bro. And quiz 4 corrections will quiz 4 corrections will begin tomorrow. After I'm done with this tonight, I'll put a sign up out, and it might be late, but I'm going to text it out on Remind. So I hope nobody's all terribly upset about that, but you know, that's the price we pay to give you online study sessions and not see this earlier. Let's see. I'm just making sure I never take L's on the test. I don't even know what you're all saying. I do know that Rajat just said that I am beating out on Monday Night Football. I'm so touched. So, okay, here we go. I'm going to broadcast the screen here momentarily. So, I'm going to do classic mode. And enough of looking at my ugly mug. Let's get you where you need to be. Now, I'm glad to see you guys are keeping it all on task there in your chat window. I know that Matthew Sai, you just said that Kahoot music, so I'm wondering, is it actually broadcasting the music? Because it didn't used to. Well, there you go. You get to listen to some wonderful Kahoot music. I know the delay is long. Maybe it's because of my crappy internet. I don't know. Um, but we'll find out. Okay, somebody loves Mark, and I hope that's another Mark, and certainly not me. We got Raj Mahal. We've got somebody in another language. We got Bucky Barnes. We have a smiley face. Feels bad. Someone loves Paymon. He does. Bam. Raj has thanked me for the Raj Mahal, excuse me, has thanked me for his shout out, and I just say anytime. To be honest, everybody loves Paymon. Sounds like a TV show. Okay, gonna give you about another 30 seconds after I say this to make sure you get logged in. Wait, there's a extension that's triple X. I think that's going to actually go away. Yeah, you gone. If I don't like your name, I kick you out. Pickle Rick. I like Tiny Rick better. Okay, we're going to start the game because I'm watching it kind of live and the lag is not too bad. We'll go full screen. Okay, so first question that's coming up. Both the Proclamation of 1763 and the Quebec Act of 1774, did it interfere with colonial claims to Western lands? Did it extend religious freedom to Catholics? Were they repealed after colonial protests? Or did it impose new taxes on goods imported from Europe? I know the lag is strong. I'm sorry. Now, there could be some lag on your end in that regard because well, nice. So I'm looking here, and we got 51 of you chose correctly to know that the Proclamation of 1763 and the Quebec Act, or Quebec Act of 1774, interfered with colonial claims to Western lands. So now, by the way, I'm looking at the chat. So at this point, we're totally into our review. So keep your chat on task, which is to make sure that we don't care about whose names are whose and all that sort of thing. But we are and if you look at, I saw Ryan Song ask, but nothing was repealed, correct? We know that the Proclamation of 1763 wasn't technically repealed. And both of these acts, now here's how you want to look at this. If you were to be asked something like this on any kind of an assessment, a quiz or something, most of you should know that the Proclamation of 1763 was particularly angering to the colonists because they wanted to move out west, and according to the crown, they weren't supposed to be able to. So if you were looking at these four answer choices, what you'd want to make sure you looked at is something that have to do with that the Proclamation of 1763 did. Jessica has said, though the Americans disregarded the proclamation, that is true. That is very, very true. We want to make sure that we acknowledge that, but and we want to make sure that we look at Americans disregard everything. Quebec was repealed. So William Lynn has said the Quebec Act was repealed, right? You tell me. I don't have a test tomorrow. Jessica says she doesn't believe so. But then she says, never mind. Cameron says, not really. Troy says, I don't know. Ryan says, I don't think so. Cameron says, I don't know. I mean, yeah. So assuming that you guys may be on a computer device at home instead of your phones, you got to go look it up. You thought I gave an answer, Vanny. Oh. Alan says it was repealed in 1791. So now I want you to look at that year. If that's 1791 and the British repealed their Quebec Act, then did they repeal it while the United States was still colonies? So Jessica says, no, it was not repealed when it still would. It was not. They repealed it in 1791. The United States declares their independence in 1776. And if you don't buy that date, then you should buy 1783. So as Jessica said, this act, this repeal was post-revolution. So it was not repealed for the American colonists in what becomes the United States. It's repealed basically for those people in Canada. So when you look at it that way, that's one of the things you have to look at. Now, Evan has said, wasn't 1763 not repealed in response to protest, but more just in response to winning the 7 Years' War? So 1763 was not repealed. It was issued after the 7 Years' War because the colonists believed that the winning of the war and getting the territory from the Appalachians west to the Mississippi River meant free land for everybody to go to. But because Indian attacks were a thing and had been a thing, you should know that the British Crown and Parliament tried to prevent the settlers from moving westward to try to protect them, because the British government, could not bring troops in to make sure that they weren't hurt. So Cameron says Canada doesn't matter to the United States because America, except for the War of 1812. And some of you say Canada's not real. But all right, so we got what we need out of this one. So let's go ahead. Why was the 7 Years' War called that if it was 9 years? Lyndon, I have no idea. They are crazy at not naming things creatively, nor do they can I give you an explanation after that? So Ryan's song, since it doesn't affect America, correct. We don't care that the Quebec Act was repealed later, unless you're looking at larger relations. So, and Gabriella, you have asked, so it wasn't repealed, but rather ignored by the people. Yeah, pretty much. So, okay, time to go on. Let's take a look at the next one. Oh, let's see who's in our lead right now. Morgan is currently leading at 925. We get Weird Al coming in right behind it, and then two of you are tied, William and somebody's, I don't know if that's kanji or not. I don't know if it's Japanese. I'm sorry. And then extension. So you guys are doing all right. So let's take a look at our next question, which has to do with the Albany Plan of Union. Emily Zhao tells me that is Chinese, and so does Jessica. So thank you. So taking a look at the Albany Plan of Union. Was it vetoed by the British because it challenged royal authority? Was it uniting Anglo-Americans during the French and Indian War but fell apart? Was it not implemented but set precedent for future plans to unite? Or was it the earliest British attempt to suppress colonial assemblies? Okay, so as we're looking at the Albany Plan of Union, let's make sure that we don't worry about whether or not it's kanji. I don't know. I don't care. America. Not really. It's all very interesting, but I want to keep us on track. See where we're at. Okay, so this one still overwhelmingly chosen by those of you who got it correct. 37 of you out of 50 something, but 8 of you said it was the red triangle. Some of you said it was the blue diamond, and others said it was number 4. Now let's take a look really quick. What is the Albany Plan of Union? Somebody can type that out on the chat. So I'm seeing rip me. Benjamin Franklin did a thing. Ben Franklin wanted to have the 13 colonies unite or something. Jessica says The I'm sorry, that one made me laugh, Jasmine. Unite or something. The Albany Plan of Union was a plan to place the British North American colonies under a more centralized government. Then Gabby says it was a plan to place the British North American colonies under a more centralized government, which makes me think you guys are getting it from someplace else. Claude has said join or die. Um, Troy Manzano, you said plan suggested by B. Franklin at Albany Congress. Evan says it's Franklin's plan for uniting the 13 colonies into a legislative force. It looks like Armand said, I don't know, I just guessed right. Ryan Song says, wait, didn't the individual colonies not like the plan, and didn't London think it was too like much power for the colonies? And Roger says it was a plan to create a unified government for the 13 colonies suggested by Benjamin Franklin, then a senior leader at age 45 and a delegate from Pennsylvania. Drew says, wasn't the immediate cause to keep the Indians on their side? And Ryan says, this is the snake, right? And Ansley says, yes, this is the snake one. And Evan says, snake one, yeah. And Troy says, they also did it right during the French and Indian War for defense. And Shireen has admitted that that she got it from by accident or lucky guess. So let's take a look at this. This was a proposal to unify the colonies as a one unified force, to make sure that they could try to make sure that they were able to try to coordinate defense for something like the French and Indian War, and other such things. But the it was not implemented, and so. But it does set that precedent for future plans. But you can also take a look at it. Think about what that join or die comic shows you. If you see the join or die and the snake is all cut up into pieces, and we know that a snake can't live when cut up into pieces, then what else can that suggest to you besides the fact that there was at least some sort of call to join together? If you saw the Join or Die cartoon, what could you conclude? United we stand, divided we fall, or die, Cameron says. Gabby says the colonies can't survive without each other. Jessica says if colonies unify, they will be one by one picked off. Cameron says something like that. So let's take a look at it. So if we look at what and Drew says that it teaches us that Georgia is irrelevant. So if we look at the answers here, if the colonies don't unite, they will fall, Cameron says. So I'd say that if you take a look at that from a document standpoint, that's the immediate message behind it. If you look at Gabby says the colonies can't survive without each other. Now, I want you to think about that for just a second, Gabby, because if the colonies can't survive without each other, why wasn't it all implemented? I'm really enjoying everybody replying. Yeah, yeah. I'm just going to type. Yes, thank you, Emily. They are such productive answers right now. Ryan Song says the colonies didn't like it since they thought it would give too little independence. So, yes, Ryan, I like that. So what you can look at that and say, it was an early attempt to band the 13 colonies together during the French and Indian War. It failed because each colony had their own agenda. So if you look at um, the test, I'm sorry, excuse me. If you look at the Albany Plan of Union and you look at that snake, there is the obvious answer of that the Albany Plan of Union essentially makes it possible for shows that the colonies are proposed to unite. This sends the message: if you don't, you're going to die, as you already said. However, the other thing to keep in mind about that is it's also indicative of the fact that you've got colonies that won't unite, not even in the face of a war, to come together for any kind of defense. So the important thing to keep in mind here is that it does set the precedent for the idea that maybe these 13 people need to come together. And it also should show you that even in an extreme circumstance, they're reluctant to come together and do anything cooperatively, which is foreshadowing for what will come later when it's all said and done and they're all looking at their Articles of Confederation going, ugh. So, okay, I just asked my group, everyone listening online right now, and everybody who watches this later, I just asked my group, because all of a sudden everybody's writing, yeah, and trying to say yes or yeah. And one of my students, who I'm not going to name publicly, although everyone in the chat can see it, and luckily the chat doesn't remain forever, said YE or ye is easier to write than yeah or yes. A OMG WTF, where's the fudge? I really am just shocked. Oh, post-millennials. So, let's see. Millen, you have jumped to the top at 1962 points. And let's see. Weird Al, you're at 1936, 78. You're coming in behind. William, you have fallen. And Chinese characters, whoever I don't know, you are right behind William. So awesome to hear. Awesome to see that we've got some new people coming on the board and that we have some challengers here. So William and the Chinese name, you two are at war. Let's see who comes out on top. All right. The next question: which helped convince the delegates to the Second Continental Congress to vote for independence? Which helped convince the delegates to the Second Continental Congress to vote for independence? Was it the unexpected success of colonists clearing out British troops out of New England? Was it the Boston Massacre? Was it Thomas Paine's common sense? Or was it John Dickinson's letters from a Pennsylvania farmer? Emily, you said the lag is so stressful on your life, I think. So, IDK, what to tell you? So let's see what you guys come up with here. Okay, so I know the lag is, just kind of cut you guys off at like 30-something seconds. Oh, well, stressful OML on my life really kind of works too. But okay, oh my Lord. Oh my Lord, look at this. The majority of my students remember that Thomas Paine's Common Sense was a very, very influential piece of writing because it does help everybody understand, not everybody, the delegates to the Second Continental Congress, that independence is probably necessary. So thanks, Grace. Grace tells me I'm hip with the IDK, but let's take a look at TPCS, Thomas Paine's Common Sense. What do we know about Thomas Paine's Common Sense that also makes it a very important document, besides the fact that it has this influential sway? Published so most had access, Ryan Song says. Evan agrees with this. Drew double agrees. We know that England isn't Thomas Paine's city. I'm not sure what that means. So they made the Olive Branch petition at the Second Continental Congress, but also decided on independence there, Gavin asks. So when you look at that, Gavin, keep in mind that yes, actually, that is what happened at the Second Continental Congress. So if you think about it, though, the Olive Branch petition is a little bit, like a lot of bit, before the Declaration. So the Olive Branch thing was rejected by England at the first Congress, right? And then others say it helped convince some of the people, fence people, to help fight for independence. Ryan says he doesn't think they really decided independence. But no offense, we're going to finish this Kahoot at like 8 a.m. Oh, Millen, I don't think we're going to finish the entire Kahoot. I don't plan to. But so Jessica says they said screw you to the Olive Branch, and England had it coming, and hundreds on the test. And didn't Thomas Paine's Common Sense start blaming of King George III? And Millen says, okay, good. Just explain stuff. It's better. All right, well, I'm going to help you explain things. But Thomas Paine's Common Sense comes after the Olive Branch petition. The Olive Branch petition is essentially ignored. We know that in reality, King George III didn't look at the Olive Branch petition because he had already determined that they were in rebellion. And the Parliament rejected any kind of consideration of the Olive Branch petition as well. So Thomas Paine's Common Sense is published after there's no answer to the Olive Branch petition. And that's when he says that anybody who thinks that reconciliation is even going to happen is living in a dream. And keep in mind that you also have some importance with this document, as it's a real good example of colonial Enlightenment influence, because it's a very rational document. It lays out an argument point by point, and also appeals to many of those Enlightenment ideals. But I'm going to let you tell me what those Enlightenment ideals are. So there, a lot of you are having some difficulty looking at the who issues the Olive Branch petition. The Olive Branch petition is issued by the Second Continental Congress. And Jasmine says rational thought. Emily said natural laws in answer to my question. Grace said belief in a government based on reason. Jessica says natural rights. Cameron is confused. Drew is saying natural laws. So what I'm going to do is type a message out to you guys, which says, at this point, keep your conversation focused on what I'm telling you, because you are getting confused. So Jessica also pointed out that Thomas Paine has some influence from Locke and Montesquieu. And Jessica also points out that those people have some influence on the three branches of government. Nice. And that's awesome. So you guys got some ideas there of what's important about common sense. So yes, it is something that has a good amount of influence on deciding that independence is necessary. Yes, it is. It is issued after the Olive Branch Petition. The Olive Branch Petition was issued by the Second Continental Congress. No answer. And then more things revolution-y happen. Thomas Paine publishes his little pamphlet. And by the time we get to July, they have agreed that tis time to part. So we get that. It is also a fine example of Enlightenment thought. As you pointed out, it basically is meant to a reasoned argument appealing to natural law. And as you remember from in the Enlightenment thought, natural law is the laws of nature that can, and of nature's God, and can be discovered and improved upon. So let's go to the next question after we look up and see here. Now we're looking at Millen still at the top. 78 has climbed right behind him. We've got at 3005, our characters have moved up to third place. Morgan back on the board, and by Weta, I don't even want to know. So you two are tied, however, for fourth place. So Evan says Evan's in fifth place, and 39 is up 21 places as the highest climber. So go 39. Okay, let's move now to the next question. So keep your convo focused on what we're doing. In the Declaratory Act, or Declaratory Act, depending on how you pronounce it, Parliament stated that A, it had the right to legislate for the colonies in all matters. B, colonists were in rebellion and subject to martial law. C, repeal all townshend duties except the one on tea. Or D, take over payment of the salaries of the royal governors. Cameron, keep it on task. Ryan Song, table your question, and we're going to ask it later so we can keep us on task. Okay, so looking at this answer, you guys were real on it with the idea that the Declaratory Act said that Parliament had the right to legislate for the colonies in all matters. So think about it. If you remember when we watched our Liberty episode 1, and we saw, that, remember, that's the guy that's Benjamin Rush. He's a little too happy to be sitting in the throne. when they repeal the Stamp Act, they passed right after it the Declaratory Act, which didn't get a lot of notice at the time. But basically, Parliament's kind of saying, okay, fine, we're going to give in to you on this one, but we're going to make it real clear in this next act, we get to make the laws for you. And and the olive branch is at the same time. Okay, we're going to wait to say that we're going to wait to talk about olive branch petition and Declaration of Independence again. So keep that tabled right now, which means we're going to put that one aside so that we can keep up with what we're doing on Kahoot. So real good. You guys knew that one well. Millen, you're still at the top. 78 still at number 2. No change at number 3. William is back at number 4. And our by Weta is now right behind William. So nice, nice, nice. Let's now do another quick question. We've got a misspelling of occurred, I think, and we also have, we're going to skip this one. No, we're not. Which of these events occurred last? Battle of Bunker Hill, fighting at Lexington and Concord, adoption of the Declaration of Independence, or the Boston Massacre? Tall has asked if we can link the questions to the Kahoot after we finish. Yes, sir, I will. Oh, boy. Got some learning to do on our timelines here, boys and girls. So the Declaration of Independence is absolutely the last act. So in the whole story of America, what we always like to emphasize is that these people did not rush to conclude right away that England is being mean and we got to leave. We're not going to play anymore. We're moving out. That is not an initial decision. Even after something like the Battle of Bunker Hill, or when the fighting breaks out first at Lexington and Concord, there's no decision to break away. Even after the Boston Massacre, there's no decision to break away. And so the Declaration of Independence is the very last act they take of what you see here. Think about the fact that you're looking at some dates right now. And so when you're looking at the dates, keep in mind that the Olive Branch petition is issued. There have been all kinds of issues that have happened with regard to the repeated injuries that are referenced in the Declaration of Independence. There has been fighting, and yet we know that they did not choose to declare independence until the bitter end. So yay colonists, yay founding fathers. They're more than reasonable, and we don't want to we don't want to make it seem at all like these people were just jumping at the gun, no pun, to declare independence and start their own country. So I don't know who Riley is, but so let's take a look then at the next question after we see our leader. Millen, you are still at the top. We've got 78 in at number 2, so top 3 spots have kept the same. We also know that D Sizzle has come on to number 4, displacing William, who is holding on to number 5. But there's only a short lead between the last 3 of the top 5. So we're looking at a difference of 3 points between 3 and 4, and 6 points between 4 and 5. So, wow, we're looking good, my friends. Let's take a look at the next question. How did the French and Indian War? I'm going to ask this one. We don't need to know this. Yay. France lost her empire. We know all that. So we should always know that the French and Indian War essentially means that France loses their empire. So, boom. Let's go. So get number 7. The chief reason for the repeal of the Stamp Act and the townshend duties by Parliament was the A, conviction that the colonists were on the verge of revolution. B, colonial boycotts and non-importation agreements. C, pleas of Pitt to allow colonists to tax themselves. William Pitt and the colonial assemblies would voluntarily vote for higher taxes. Boom. Now, this was what you were supposed to watch on your own when you finished watching Liberty, the American Revolution. So 34 of you that are participating right now, you remembered that the colonists boycott and they sign non-importation agreements, which is basically the idea that they will not import any finished British goods. And this starts them on a strange little path of having to become self-sufficient as well. So this is something to keep in mind. So we know that Jessica, don't admit such things about when you don't watch the video, but you still got it right. Plus, the book also talks about it, but the video makes it a little more clear. But real glad you didn't watch the rest of that video, because that makes you cool. So they wouldn't vote for anything tax related from Britain, Ryan says, which is true. Think that the colonists are on the verge of revolution. I'm glad no one said that one. And the William Pitt, why is that one not correct? Does anyone know? So I see William says, didn't William Pitt get replaced by Townshend? And I see Ryan say he was a military general in the French and Indian War. And Sean says 43 answered this question, and I'm in 60th place. Sorry. He was a Tory. He was a pro-Brit. Didn't Pitt not want to fight the Americans because he was among those people who thought they should have their rights? And Millen says he came in and saved the Brits from getting wrecked? And Jasmine says, wasn't he a Tory? Ooh. All right, Jessica. You saw he was a Tory and he was pro-British. So you were saying that basically, what is your line of reasoning on that one, Jessica? She says Pitt, but I see a lag. There were multiple Pitts. There were. Google and history and your notes. Well, if you know he's pro-British, look at the answer choice that's here. He said he's pro-British, and this says pleas of William Pitt to allow colonists to tax themselves. Do the math. Okay, one more time. Jessica said he's pro-British. Jessica, am I correct in what I'm stating there? Okay, so Jessica pointed out that William Pitt is pro-British. Now look at the answer choice on the screen. Pleas of Pitt to allow colonists to tax themselves. Now, do some logical math here. If he's pro-British, why can't that be the choice? Ryan Sung says if he's pro-British, he wouldn't want the colonists to tax themselves. Ding, 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 ding. Ryan, you get bonus points for eternity. And so he's making money off them by being taxed by Britain. So he and Jessica has written, William Pitt the Elder, a powerful figure in the House of Commons, a former prime minister. Pitt believed Parliament had authority to legislate for the colonies. And then Cameron says the only Pitt he knows is Brad Pitt. Oh, okay. Nice job, Ryan. Yes. Jessica, I love that you brought that in. Thank you. And thank you for quoting it. So putting quotation marks around it so that we know that that is not your original thought. How academic. All right, let's take a look here. Millen, you're still at the top. Top three have not moved. William, you have moved. You have moved people out of the way like mountains. And you are now at number 4. In Smiley, you're at number 5. Okay, so William, though, is closing in. And 78 is still a distant lead, is distantly off from Millen. So, all right. Why did Americans object to the Tea Act? Was it because it raised the price they had to pay for the tea? Or it forced them to drink tea rather than coffee? Or was it still a tax on tea and paying salaries for royal governors? Or it forced them to buy overpriced tea from the British East India Company? This one is one that is this one is a tricky question. So Jessica, you had written that you were that you said that this one's kind of sketchy, and it is a bit of a sketchy one. I think I saw Tall maybe say that that the or no, I'm sorry, Matt Levy Levy. You said the tea from the British East India Company is cheaper, and that is true. And you're going to know that tea was cheap, so it can't be that it raised the price they had to pay for tea. Um, so David Sun says, well, they had a monopoly, so their tea was cheaper. Correct. And I know that Emily believes that this was the beginning of Starbucks, but that is not true. Gabby says, yeah, but wouldn't the tax on the tea from the British East India Company be more than the tea itself, making it overpriced? So let's see. Emily says it was a matter of concept as opposed to price. So, Emily, you are absolutely correct on that one. That's what they were mostly upset about. Let's see. It was the principle of the thing, Grace said. Nice. Even with the tax, it is not overpriced. Ryan said that's correct. Grace has gone on to say that that it was a matter of concept and it was a matter of principle. So that's why they got so mad. And Jessica says Ryan says it's a small tax. Jessica says it's low key negligible. But Cameron says it's just that the tea was like universal. And Jessica says, yeah. Plus, they drank it all the time. And then Cameron says it set the precedent that Britain could tax anything if they could tax tea. Loving the discussion going on here. Y'all right. And one of the things that this is the green one forced them to buy overpriced tea from the British East India Company. That's there to fool you because you're going to know that the Tea Act did give the British East India Company a monopoly. But you also are going to know, hopefully, smartly, that did not raise the price that they had to pay for their tea. And so good show for that one. I'm hoping you guys are paying attention. We're going to do a couple more of these after we look at the leaderboard here, which we have remained unchanged. Millen has the highest answer streak of 8. So, Millen, you are on fire, and you are the leader. So, good on you, sir. All right, let's look at a couple more here. The Declaration of Independence was primarily written by Yeah, you all better get this 100% correct. I'm going to lose it. Someone's going to put the wrong answer just to troll. Paymon, hold your question, sir. And we'll come to that in a little bit. What is this? Oh. Oh. Y'all. What is going on? Ah! I gave you a document. It even says Declaration of Independence, attributed to Thomas Jefferson. I have to drink Diet Coke. I'm sure you guys totally trolled me on purpose. My whole life's purpose is ruined. I'm going to retire tomorrow. Oy vey. This is the one. Thomas Jefferson. So those 4 of you who are trolls out there, shame, 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 circle of shame. All right. Top 3 and 4 have not changed, and we got a new one. Looks like I. So, all right. Yeah, Rajit, I hope you're right that they only did it for the troll. Although Ryan says it's the Illuminati. Jasmine says I was helping customers, and so you chose a random one? Oh. All right. John Adams, a key figure in the Revolution, drafted the letter to the legislatures condemning the Townshend duties, served as a lawyer for Boston Massacre soldiers, started committees of correspondence, or started a protest meeting before the Boston Tea Party. I'm watching you guys talking about whether or not John Adams was dead. Jessica says no, it's Crispus Attucks. Ooh. Interesting. John Adams did serve as a lawyer for the Boston Massacre soldiers. And that's because everybody says, John Adams is such an awesome guy that even though he was a leader and a key figure in the revolutionary movement and was very critical of the British, he did believe that everyone was entitled to a fair trial and that they should be provided representation if they cannot get one themselves. And of course, no one was lining up to represent the soldiers. So he served as the lawyer. So we are like, oh yeah, John Adams, he's a good guy. And so we have the person known as I, and only I, is displacing the former 3 and 4 spot with Millen and 78 battling it out. So, David's son, you just caught something, son, and that is that Samuel Adams started the committees of correspondence. Boo, yeah. Okay, that was a really good discovery that you made. I'm glad you put it out there. And let's take a look. Which of the following statements about the Revolutionary War is correct? Fighting ended with Cornwallis's surrender at Yorktown. Help from Native American tribes enabled Americans to win. The American victory at Charleston was a turning point. Our most soldiers were drafted into the Continental Army. You know what? You don't need to know this, but okay. I'm going to let you guys see if you can get it. Everyone be nice to Millen. Yeah, this question should be free. Let's see. Jasmine still hasn't read chapter 8. Feels bad. Okay, so fighting ended with Cornwallis's surrender at Yorktown. That is correct. I'm just gonna say that if you answered blue, I'm hoping you're trolling. This one, probably not something you should have heard of. And no, they did not draft. So, all right, Troy, don't ask questions like this. And let's see where we're at. Ooh, I is coming for Millen, but 78 has stepped back in place. And William is back at number 4, and High has come up. So nice. Now, for those of you who are talking about the fighting, keep in mind that we don't care about the fighting so much. The fighting is not something we have to worry about. Let's look at 12. Northwest Ordinance did all the following except. Did it forbid slavery in the Northwest Territory? Did it permit territorial citizens to make their own laws? Did it permit the citizens of the territory to apply to Congress for statehood? Or did it remove Native Americans? Are we going to leave it at 27 answers? Because if up Northwest Ordinance and make sure that you're clear on what the Northwest Ordinance did. Now, of course, because this is streaming and will still play, you could pause and write it down and make sure that you understand that those 3 answers are all correct about the Northwest Ordinance. But it did not remove Native Americans. And there, if you go on to read, George Washington is a favor of making treaties with the Native groups to try to make sure that they can avoid conflict with lands. Of course, that didn't happen, but at least he tried. So Jessica says, thought the natives had to move off and why they got paid. So Um, Jessica, um, the natives, I think you might be referring to later on down the road when there is the forced removal of the Cherokees, where that's an official government action, as opposed to settlers fighting off Indians. Um, so I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to. Also, keep in mind that Ryan just said it's like you give us all this land and we give you a wagon of weapons or something. And Josh, you brought up Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson is correct when you're talking about um, Trail of Tears, and you're looking at some of the treaties that were made that were completely gone back on. And so we'll talk about Andrew Jackson. Good old AJ comes up in the next unit. But can you hear now? Sorry about that. Evidently, I somehow hit the mute button on the microphone. Um, Thanks for telling me that you can hear now. Um, I'm glad none of you lost your hearing. My bad. What we're going to do is we're not going to do this one real quick. Oh, yes, you can. You can do this one. I'm going to let you guys do this for a minute. Take a look, and then we're going to move into some stimulus before you guys go to bed. No extra credit on the test. This does go to 10 o'clock. So let's take a look here. Now, what later topic does this particular question refer or relate to? Drew for the win. FTW. Jay's Treaty. Lucy for the win. Jay's Treaty. Cameron just agreeing. Ryan Song, you come in with that as well. Nicely done. Because when you're looking at Jay's Treaty, it's about the fact that they're trying to get the British to leave, and it makes them mad because they should have left anyway. So nicely done. Nicely done, boys and girls. Okay. So here is our final ranking. Millen, 78. Mitali, you came right up there. You threw William out, and High ends up at number 5. I am really impressed. So good for you, boys and girls. So Ryan Song says, but wait, Jay's Treaty does like nothing, right? Boom. All right. Let's see here. Why don't we see Millen there at number 1? So, all right. So, you better be giving this wonderful ratings. Because if this goes down, if I don't get green, feels bad to be you. There we go, boys and girls. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Well, guys, glad some of you would Kahoot again. Now, keep in mind, I didn't write these questions, so you're not going to hurt my feelings. But we are going to end this. And I'm glad that many of you thought it was epic. I hope you're not just being silly. But let's, what we're going to do now is we're just going to look at a couple stimulus questions for the remaining time. I will send the link to these questions. Give me just a moment and I'll make sure I get you that link and share it. Copy. We're going to copy it again. I'm going to go to your remind, at least. First, there is the Kahoot sent to your remind, and I will link it to the web page as well so that you guys have it. As well. And then we'll go to Albert.io and we'll make sure that we get you to some stimuli. Okay. Let's see. And it'll be on the APUSH website as well, my friends, at markvanover.weebly.com. So you can get it from either place if you don't want to have to retype the whole address in and you don't want it to be on your phone. So, all right, let's take a look now at Albert.io. And I'm going to take you to that screen really quick. Now, remember, I'm not endorsing Albert.io in any way, shape, or form as one thing or the other. It is available to you as a subscription if you choose to do that. But there are other ways to make sure you're just equally as successful into this class. So let's take a look at this. And we will go to my dashboard. Well, you have to know information about Washington's farewell address for this test. We're going to, yes, you should know about that. And as far as advertising, no, I am not advertising for this, and I'm not monetized as it is because it's a school account. So I'm not allowed to do that. Let's look at new Democratic and Republican ideals. So a couple questions here. We have, how important are the loyalists for this test? Just understand that you understand who they are. You should understand who they are. And yes, Grace Selecki, I make bank from this. I'm just such the richest teacher on earth. Okay, so let's take a look here. The stream is not monetized. It's a school account. I'm not allowed to monetize. So first, let's look at our stimulus. We have, hold on. Let's play with this a little bit because it thinks I'm trying to make you. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, ideals in the American Revolution. I long to hear that you have declared an independency. And by the way, in the new code of laws, which I suppose it will be necessary for you to make, I desire that you would remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or no representation. So we can say that we know that this is a letter from Abigail Adams to John Adams, March 1776. And hold on just a moment, because you guys are on a completely different topic in the chat. So Grace, keep your loyalist question for when we're done. And there's a couple of you that have some questions that we'll be tabling. And we're going to go to the stimulus question that you have here. So the stimulus is Abigail Adams, letter to John Adams in March of 1776, where she does not know that they have not yet declared their independence. So the question says, the opinions expressed in this letter by Abigail Adams most clearly reflect the ideas of which of the following? First Great Awakening, the English Civil War, the Enlightenment, or mercantilism? So you tell me. I will choose your answer based on what you write in chat, based on when I get 4 answers. So Ryan Song is saying it is C. Janina, you can't be here. Let's see. C, 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 C. Lots of you are saying C. So it sounds like you overwhelmingly believe it is C. So I'm going to go ahead and choose your answer and submit that. And that is correct. So if you look here, it gives you a little bit of information. Taking a look here, you're looking at this. The correct answer is C. And if you look here, 2 central ideas in the Enlightenment political philosophy were 1, limiting the power of rulers, and 2, the power to rule coming from the consent of the governed. Here, Abigail Adams uses both of these ideas to argue why women should be taken into consideration as the new government is being created. She urges her husband to forego the traditional arrangement of husbands having unlimited power over their wives and for women to have a voice in the government that rules over them. But if you look here, A is incorrect because the First Great Awakening is an increased religious devotion movement, which utilized emotional appeals to get people to repent and depend on God for salvation. And while we talked about the fact that you can trace the First Great Awakening to an increase in more independent thought when looking at some of the established religions, such as Puritanism. So it does have a role in bringing about revolutionary ideas over time. This would not be the correct answer here. If you look at B, the English Civil War is about who had the right to govern. It was about Parliament and the king, and it has nothing to do with this. And mercantilism is the economic policy of the British. So you all know that. And we are on our way. So let me see here really quick. Same stimulus. Along with greater equality for women, the next question, the American Revolution also sparked increased attempts to accomplish which of the following? Return the land that had been taken from the Native Americans by the British. B, equalize wealth between coastal elites and inland farmers being like the Tidewater. C, provide free public education to rural children. Or D, abolish slavery across the new United States. So the question is here, along with greater equality for women, the American Revolution also sparked increased attempts to accomplish which of the following? So we got A, return land that had been taken from Native Americans. B, equalize wealth between coastal elites and inland farmers. C, provide free public education to rural children. Or D, abolish slavery across the new United States. Lots of you are saying D. I've got 4 Ds. So let's take a look. You'll submit your answer. So a couple of you pointed out a couple things. I noticed here reading your comments in the chat that D you thought was kind of sketch. And so Rajat says D is like sketch, and but he thinks it's D. Helen, who's not my class, but hey, thanks for commenting in here. It's in the reading, and she swears. Rajat's telling David he doesn't think it's B, the equalizing the wealth. And Drew says, but what about the South, though? And Ryan, by the way, you said you don't think it's B. Rajat says that. Ryan says, since elites are like, screw you, we want our money. David says, if Helen says it, then it's D. So Helen, evidently you are a goddess. If we're looking here, Jessica recalls it from her notes. And let's see, we have Ryan says, since there are only a few instances where we can truly say there is slavery issues. So I want you guys to look here for just a minute. When they say the new United States, do they mean that the new states that they are going to develop and not really the South and existing states? So hold on. Everyone calm down for just a minute, because you're all going to go off in different directions. So take a look really quick. When it says abolish slavery across the new United States, it means literally the country. And Ryan, you're saying, so some of you are pointing out, didn't New England states abolish slavery? Didn't it end up happening? But it didn't. Andrea says it didn't happen until long after the Revolution. Cameron pointed out everybody south of Pennsylvania kept it. Let's take a look at your answer explanation. So look at D, what it says here. Think about this. The idea is expressed in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, spread after the American Revolution. These ideas particularly took hold in the northern states, and many moved to outlaw slavery in the 1780s and 90s. Manumission societies, or groups that urged slaveholders to voluntarily free their slaves, and abolitionist groups, those demanding an immediate legal end to slavery, grew in number as well in the late 1700s and early 1800s. Even so, the idea of abolition was still a radical one advocated by a small group of dedicated individuals. So, you guys need to look at here. So hold on. I need to kind of catch up. So Eliana made a very interesting point here. I'm looking back at your stuff, but they're less where there's equalized wealth. Jessica says because they decided to stop slave trade. Later, though, Civil War, slavery is abolished. Alex says, think of the ordinances. They didn't allow slavery in those new states because they wanted to make a change. Eliana says it isn't something they accomplished, and everyone, Eliana, what she said is golden. It isn't something they they accomplished, but it's something they wanted to accomplish. So essentially, you got to look at this as these are attempts. People begin to make the arguments that if we are going to have a document that starts this country that says we are all created equal and we all are given certain rights that exist because we're born, then essentially you have to look at it from that standpoint that there are people that begin to question, well, if you're going to have this as your founding ideal, why is it that we still have slavery? And if you look at, I want you to look at choice B. If you go back to choice B, equalizing wealth between coastal elites and inland farmers, I want to make sure that you guys understand one thing. So this is going to be a study session, historical truism. This is American history. And while I'd love to hold on to great big ideals and not sound like a jaded man, you are going to be hard-pressed to find people who want to equalize wealth. That is never going to happen. So if you look here, look at what it says in B. Which the American Revolution had the effect of helping equalize social status among some colonists, I would add, some colonists. It did not affect wealth distribution. The colonial pattern of wealthy coastal elites and poor inland residents wouldn't be disrupted until the 1800s. During the first half of that century, cotton production became profitable, and since it couldn't be grown inland, it spread the plantation model throughout the South. Also, increased industrialization built up in inland cities in the north, and eventually, in the latter half of the cities, century, cities like Pittsburgh, Chicago, and Detroit become wealthy commercial centers. So when you see it say that it didn't affect wealth distribution and that it didn't necessarily disrupt wealth distribution until the 1800s. Hey guys, I'm just looking at what you guys are all chatting, and you're having a great conversation about like Animal Farm, but I want to make sure that we keep us on track here. So if you want me to help lead a study session, and I'm going to help explain some things to you that I want you to keep in mind, make sure that you at least pretend like you're listening on your end. But if you look at it like B, you want to make sure that you understand that distribution of wealth that's disrupted later is not going to be because the government redistributes the wealth, and the government doesn't disturb that. What we mean is that when industrialism starts to happen over time, you'll see some of the wealthiness that's been isolated along the coast start to move inland as transportation infrastructure is built and manufacturing begins to be a thing. So, so that's something to keep in mind. Public education does become a thing like starting in the 1830s, but it doesn't become a thing at the time of the revolution. The revolution, well, I mean, I hate to say this, but it's American history. You're never going to see this happen. Returning land taken by the taken from the Native Americans. Once it's taken, it's not given back. And so that's something to definitely make sure you don't do that. Helen, you are correct on the American system. Now, looking at Republican motherhood, let's take a look here. Now, this moves in from our time period a little bit, but let me look at the question just to make sure. Let's read the stimulus first. April 4th in 1815 from the late Mrs. Susan Mansfield Huntington. She says, "It appears to me that 3 simple rules would make children's tempers much more amiable than we generally see them. First, never give to them anything improper for them, because they strongly and passionately desire it. And even withhold proper things until they manifest a right spirit. Second, always gratify every reasonable desire when a child is pleasant in its request, that your children may see that you love to make them happy. Third, never become impatient and fretful yourself, but a proportion of your displeasure exactly to the offense. If parents become angry and speak loud and harsh upon every slight failure of duty, they may bid a final adieu to domestic subordination, unless the grace of God interposes to snatch the little victims of severity from destruction. Feel confident that even though more children are injured by excessive indulgence than by the opposite fault, yet the effects of extreme rigor are the most hopeless. And the reason is, associations of a disagreeable nature are the strongest. For my own part, I find myself falling so far short that I am sometimes overwhelmed with the distressing apprehension of erring fatality. Dear children, I tremble for you when I reflect how dangerous is the path in which you are to treat, and how difficult the task of directing you in safety." So, taking a look here, contrary to the private role expected of women in the excerpt, which of the following colonial era communities encourage women to have an active public role? Take a look here. Private role expected of women. Which of the following communities during the colonial period expected women to take a total public role, a more public role? Many of you are going with A's. All right, seeing those A's, let's submit your answer. Incorrect. Feels bad. So this one I wouldn't have expected you to get. Um, it it is one that is very I don't know. Let me say it's kind of tricky in that it's kind of meant to throw you, because one of the things that you know is that many of these types of questions are going to not necessarily emphasize the contribution of the natives. But now hold on, just calm down a little bit. So if you look here, Indians are all like, we're equal. Jessica, you're saying it allowed matrilineal, plus it's a moral match, many times more likely to be more matrilineal, and women were treated better. Men ended up moving into the wife's longhouse and things like that. That is correct. The Iroquois were a matriarchal society, Eliana says, and kind of. And so if you look here, what it says here, if you look, Iroquois women were valued as much for their private contributions to the family and crops as they were for public role. Inheritance of the Iroquois society was matrilineal as opposed to the patrilineal nature of most European societies. Women's voices were also highly valued in tribal deliberation, as evidenced by their contributing roles at tribal meetings. Now, this one, I would say to you guys, first of all, I would not put this on your test, because it's a little on the obscure side. But if you do look at your source, it does say, excuse me, hold on, my bad. If you look at your source, Republican motherhood, so it's trying to show you a little bit of the, it's trying to show you a little bit of how there's a history of this idea of Republican motherhood. Let me ask you really quick, what is Republican motherhood? Ryan Song has asked, do you have to know stuff about natives for this chapter, for this unit? No, not as much. Things do come up later in the course that you do need to know. Jessica says motherhood is about the concept of roles in society, I believe. Okay, that's part of it. Drew says mothers teach their kids about the virtues of republicanism. Bam. That's more specific. Gabby says Republican motherhood is a 20th century term for the attitude towards women's roles present in the emerging United States before, during, and after the American Revolution. Eliana says the expected attitude of mothers to raise their children into citizens of republicanism. Ryan says, well, the 20th century is 1900s. But Ryan, I know that you figured it out, because you said never mind. But keep in mind that this is a term that historians have given to the concept later. Cameron says civic virtue and stuff. Yes, this is a term on your unit guide. For those of you who haven't been looking at it, you would already know this. Let's take a look at the next question on Republican motherhood, and then we're going to start wrapping up. Which of the following documents presents the earliest challenge to the Nah, never mind. That's a question that looks forward to the future, big time. Let's see. Let's take a look at this one. This is going to be an interesting one. Okay. Says Howden's Washington, no date, at the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, and um, it is in Williamsburg. And let's just look at this. This is not what you normally see um, with a picture. Let's just read what it says. For his Washington, Howden combined the ancient and time-honored with the current and tempered classical idealism with a down-to-earth naturalism, creating a version of classical taste that appealed to Americans. Howden presented Washington as a modern Cincinnatus, the Roman farmer and general who left his land to fight for his state and, after victory, returned to his farm as a man of peace and simplicity. In this figure, the artist balanced the dualities of military and civil, war and peace, ancient and modern. Washington wears his uniform, but holds a civilian walking cane in his right hand. To the left and behind the general is a farmer's plowshare, yet he rests his left hand on a bundle of rods called fasces, the Roman symbol of civil authority. Howden translated the symbol to an American usage by forming the bundle from 13 rods to stand for the unification of the 13 original colonies and adding arrows in between that likely refer to Native Americans or the idea of American as a wild frontier. Washington is portrayed as a man, not as a god. So take a look. Here we go again. Here's the picture that's described. And now let's go look at the question. Which of the following descriptions of George Washington best allows him to be compared to Cincinnatus? A. Washington was a member of the Virginia elite with a 500-acre plantation known as Mount Vernon. B. Washington was unsure of his abilities going into the presidency, so he formed a cabinet of advisors who considered the most talented men of the day. C. Washington was successful both as general and as politician, although he preferred tending to his plantation and only gave himself to public service when he felt called by duty to do so. Or D. Washington was a capable military general. He was chosen to lead the Continental Army based on his performances in the French and Indian War. So, we heard, and the question, I'm seeing lots of you say C. I see that 4 of you have chosen C. So, let's put that down. And you are correct. Good job, boys and girls. Like the famous Roman Cincinnatus, Washington only held power when he felt like his country needed him. After success in the Revolutionary War, he willingly gave up power and returned to his Virginia plantation. When called upon to be the country's first president, he accepted the role and served only as long as he felt necessary. Despite being asked to run for a 3rd term, Washington felt that he had done his duty and again returned home. Likewise, Cincinnatus was called upon to be the dictator twice during his lifetime. Both times he stayed just as long as he felt necessary and then willingly gave up his title to return to his farm. So yay, George Washington as Cincinnatus. Let's take a look at Washington's presidency for the next one. All right. Which of the following Washington's actions would best reflect the use of the fasces by Howden in this statue? So, looking here again, it says, to the left and behind the general is a farmer's plowshare, yet he rests his hand on a bundle of rods called a fasces, the Roman symbol for civil authority, translating it to an American usage by forming the bundle from 13 rods to stand for the unification of the 13 original colonies and adding arrows in between that likely refer to Native Americans. So let's go back here. Which of the following actions would best reflect the use of the fasces by Howden in the statue? A, his creation of the first presidential cabinet. B, his opposition to the Newburgh conspiracy. C, his decision to step down after serving 2 terms. Or D, his request that France recall Citizen Genet. Okay, so I see lots of A's, except for Gabby, who said Hamilton, which doesn't work here. Many of you are saying A with question marks. Let's take a look. Ooh, roasted. All right, let's take a look. His opposition to the Newburgh conspiracy. And you might go, Newburgh conspiracy? Take a look. In 1783, a group of army officers met to threaten the Continental Congress with mutiny if they did not pay the soldiers what had been promised them. Washington showed up unexpectedly to the meeting and shamed the men into backing down. The fasces is used to show strength and unity and the ability to govern, which is why you can see it in statues and carvings all over Washington, D.C. Washington's handling of the Newburgh conspiracy saved the unity of the fledgling United States. So, no, Rajat, it's not going to be on the test. No, Ryan Song, it's not in your book. You're right, it's not in the book. Was that even in your reading? No. So you're learning something new. Calm down, folks. Boom. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay. You're learning something new in the review. I didn't have this on your thing. I didn't give you anything on it. But those of you who are still in with this session right now, you win because you know about the Newburgh conspiracy. And this is why George Washington is wonderful, wonderful, and everybody loves him. And if you look here real quick, D is difficult. That means this is a hard one. If you look here, look down below. If you look at how others have answered, this would be a very, very difficult one. So, D for dang nabbit. There you go. All right, let's look at one more. Bam, bam, bam. Which of Washington's action as president would most contradict his portrayal, not betrayal, excuse me. A, support of the Jay Treaty. B, his victory over the British at Yorktown. C, his support of Hamilton's financial plan. Or D, his role as president of the Constitutional Convention. Jessica, it's something that was helpful for you to know. I have never seen the Newburgh conspiracy ever referenced before. So, if you look at Howden's portrayal, which one of these would most contradict his portrayal as a man of integrity who can yield authority bound only by duty, nothing more and nothing beyond that? Some of you are saying it's A or C, but you have to choose. Your answers are divided at the moment. I need definitive answers. I have 1, 2, 3 A's. I have 1, 2, 3 C's. Ryan Song just gave it an A. That's what we're going with. Boom, 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 boom. A. Washington sent Chief Justice John Jay to Great Britain to settle several issues that remained after the Revolutionary War, including trade, Britain's occupation of forts in the Northwest, and the arming of Native Americans. Due to a lack of bargaining leverage, the Treaty Jay brought back heavily favored the British. It's very unpopular in the United States. With Washington's support, it passed through the Senate. However, it further split the public into emerging Federalist and Democratic Republican parties. It also deepened the divisions between the North and the South, since the treaty failed to address the South's main complaint, compensation of slaves taken by the British during the war. It also made people question Washington's ability to lead and allowed prominent Republican Jefferson and Monroe to publicly criticize him. All right. All right, Ripperoos. I'm tired. And I'm going to have to give this up. That was a hard one. Yes. You guys actually had to think. And I know that thinking scares you. But in the end, you guys are big people. And while you want to know all the answers exactly, sometimes you're not going to know. Sometimes you're going to get some topic that might be brought before you that isn't something that was terribly emphasized. There's a large there's a large amount of information in APUSH. And so I can't possibly know everything that they're going to want you to know. You can't possibly know everything you want to know. And sometimes you're going to get presented with something you just have never seen before, and you have to be prepared to tackle that based upon your best educated guess from the stimulus that's provided and the answer choices you have. So many of you are writing saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Where's the Diet Coke? David, son, right here. Been drinking it all night. So you guys are Fire Livestream Vanny. Uh-oh. I don't even know what you guys are making me feel old really tonight. You've got lots of things you've been typing in here that I don't even know what you're talking about. Can anyone explain the fire part? I don't normally take that to mean anything good. Oh, it's lit. Like, it's good? Fire means good. Got it. Okay, I have learned something new tonight, children. The children have taught. I'm on fire. I got it. I got it. Got it. Okay. I'm going to try to be cool. I'm going to use this maybe in class. But you can't laugh at me if I get it wrong. Because, nothing's sadder than somebody in their mid-40s trying to use slang and get down with the people. Boom. All right. Yes, Rajat, you have become the teacher. I have been schooled. You guys are lit. All right. Ms. Bryant should educate me on cool kid terminology. All right. I am so. You are ready. You're lit. You're going to so get A's on this test. I don't even know what to say. 100, 100, 100. All right, guys. I am now well beyond my time. Thank you for the 22 of you that stayed with me from the high of like 55. And for tomorrow, let's see. Are there any other questions that we tabled? I know there were a couple of them. David, you're very welcome. Everybody, you're very, very welcome. Happy to do this. Oh, now I'm getting keck. Okay, I don't even know what any of that means. Okay. Statement of neutrality. Was it needed for an AP exam? Newberg. Jessica, I already answered you. I've never seen it answered, or never seen it asked, excuse me. Okay, how important is it to know certain people? So, certain people, I I I don't know how to answer that. There are certain people that are really important to know, and their names are on the unit guide. I see what was Pinckney's treaty. And Millen has said Pinckney's treaty was like with the Spanish and allowed trading near the Mississippi and New Orleans, that area. Yup. Wasn't like, it was. Millen says 1795. Blam. All right. Any other questions besides Newburgh conspiracy and Pinckney's treaty? All right. Boom. They got free navigation of the Mississippi and they got the disputed land north of Florida. Blam Eliana says, I never take L's. That's another one. I don't know what that means. I'm so old. Anybody going to enlighten me on that one? Loss. Got it. Losses. Oh, for God's sakes. It's a gamer thing, isn't it? All right. You guys can't even spell. You can't even spell yeah or yes. You got ye going on, or yeah, or whatever that is. And now you can't even say losses. You are a goat. Dub is win. Yeah, what's GG? I'm the goat. Good game. Oh, man. All right. GG, goats, dubs. I get that one. We talked about this in class. I don't know. There's stuff that Paymon says. I have no idea what he says, and I'm not going to ask you to repeat it because I don't know. You guys just have your little gamer culture text crap. I'm going to go to bed now. Don't ever use those terms on a test, or I will cry, and I will roast you all. All right. Good night. Thanks for stopping by. Hope that you get a good night's sleep. One thing I will make sure I see really fast, I'll show you really fast, and tell all your friends who've gone away. Let me show you. Don't forget on the website, if you go to my website, markvanover.weebly.com, go to helpful study links. And here you're going to see APUSH period 3. And once that all logs in, if you come down here, you have all kinds of little video things that you can watch tonight as your last thing, little US quiz main page things, key concept review videos, and if you really want to go into more detail, all kinds of stuff here. Okay. That's all I'm going to tell you. I'm going to watch APUSH videos until class tomorrow. Yes. Well, if you guys had been looking around the website and remembered what I've shown you, you would have maybe known this was here a long time ago. So, sleep is for the weak. All right. It's time for me to go for reals now. Cameron, you're not weak. Go to bed. Get some sleep. It's going to do you worse to stay up and stay up all night than it is going to be to try to go to bed. So, that being said, my friends, my unlimited love to y'all. Get some sleep. Good night, guys. Hi, Natalie Lee. Bye, Natalie Lee. Don't let the clowns bite. Oh, God. Yeah, no. Clowns are evil. And that's before it came out. So, all right, boys and girls, I am done. I am out. I am outie 5,000.